So in this video, we'll pick up where we left off on page 96 with example 4. So we have a 4-cylinder engine that has a bore of 3.85 inches and is 8 inches deep. With the piston on the bottom of the cylinder, the top of the piston measures 3.5 inches from the bottom of the cylinder. What is approximate piston displacement? So here we have our bore, so we're going to find our radius from that. So we have 3.85 and we'll divide by 2. And we get 1.925. So this is our radius. But the problem is in this example is that we haven't been given the stroke. So we need to understand a little bit about pistons. So it says that the cylinder is 8 inches deep. So this is our cylinder right here. And then when our piston is down at the bottom, it tells us that it's 3.5 inches. The top of the piston is 3.5 inches from the bottom of the cylinder. So this 3.5 is part of this 8. And the idea with displacement is that it's the distance at the top of the cylinder moves. So the cylinder isn't moving 8 inches. The stroke is not 8 inches. The stroke is the distance that is moving, which would be 8 minus 3.5, which is 4.5 inches. So this is going to be our height, or our stroke. So our volume is pi r squared h. So we'll have pi times 1.925 squared times 4.5. And we'll type all of that into our calculator all at once. And when we do, we get 52.387039. But we have 4 cylinders, and it says what's the approximate piston displacement of this engine. So that means the whole entire thing. So we want to take this and multiply it by 4. And that gives us 209.548, and it keeps going. Now the problem should tell us where to round. Let's say we're going to round to the nearest whole number here. So this 5 after the 9 tells us the 9 needs to go up to a 10, so we'd have 210 cubic inches. So here's one more with cylinders and pistons. The volume of a cylinder with a piston in the bottom center is 8 cubic inches, and the piston displacement is 64 cubic inches. Find the compression ratio. So we talked about compression ratios back in the very beginning of this course. It was on page 23 of our notes. Compression ratios is the expanded volume to the compressed volume. So the expanded volume happens when the piston is at the bottom. The compressed volume happens when the piston is at the top. So it says here the volume of the cylinder when the piston is at the bottom center is 80 cubic inches. So that's the expanded volume. And then it says the displacement is 64. Now displacement means how far it's moved. So it's telling us that the difference between the expanded volume and the compressed volume is 64 cubic inches. So if I take 80 and we subtract 64, I get 16, and that 16 is our compressed volume. Compression ratio has to be reduced until the bottom number is 1, so we'll divide by 16 here and divide by 16 here. So 80 divided by 16 is 5, and 16 divided by 16 is 1. So our compression ratio is 5 to 1, or we could write it as 5 to 1. So let's talk about spheres for a minute. So a sphere is like a ball. The surface area is 4 pi r squared, and the volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So here we have a basketball that has a diameter of 9.5 inches. Find the surface area and the volume. round to the nearest tenth. So first of all, this is a diameter, so we need to take 9.5 and divide by 2, and that gives us 4.75 for our radius. So surface area is 4 pi r squared. So we'll have 4 times pi times 4.75 squared. And if we put that into our calculator all at the same time, we get 283.5287. It says to round to the nearest tenth. The 2 after it tells us to leave the 2 at 2. And we get 283.5. Leave the 5 at 5, sorry. And it's area, so we have square. And this is in inches, so it's inches. Square inches. The volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So we have 4/3 times pi times 4.75 cubed. You can type that into your calculator all at once. You can do 4/3 if you have a fraction button, or you can just write in parentheses 4 divided by 3 times pi times 4.75 to the third power. And we get 448.9205. Again, we want to round to the nearest tenth, so the 2 after it tells us to leave the 9 and 9. So our final answer here is 448.9, and because it's volume, it's cubic inches.